A couple months ago, I talked about one of my favorite, if not my most favorite game called Omori, a game that delves into the psychological and traumatic past of a boy named Sunny, who copes with his problems by living in a world called Headspace. Previously, I took a look at what the game dubs the good ending, or the Sunny route, typically the main route players follow for the first time that sees Sunny overcoming the death of his sister Marie and allows him and his friend Basil to not live with grief anymore. It's a beautiful story about overcoming self-doubt and giving trust to those around you that you care about no matter what. But that's not the only ending that you can get in Omori. There's more than a handful, but the second major route is called the Hikikomori route, a route that flips Sunny's story on its head and in my opinion redefines denial, and in my opinion leaves a bigger impression on the player than other alternate routes in other games. As always, heavy spoilers throughout this entire video. If you want to play the route yourself, then go do that, then come back to this video. And as always, this video will contain the following triggers on screen, so if any of this bothers you, it's probably best to click off now and come back to a later time. Now, before I dive into Omori's alternate routes, I want to first go over what exactly a Hikikomori is and how it applies to this route. Hikikomori is a social phenomenon that mainly originates from Japan that saw individuals not leaving their homes and withdrawing from society. Hikikomori is also a spectrum, so some individuals may not leave their houses, and some may refuse to even go to other rooms within their own home. Many of them often live with family, and Hikikomori is typically associated with individuals who already suffer from a depressive disorder or some kind of anxiety disorder, as often many Hikikomoris withdraw from society because they feel like burdens or failures to their society or peers. And just like how the term describes, this is kind of what Sunny does within this route. In fact, nothing within the prologue of Omori really changes until you get to the third day when Kel knocks on your door to hang out. And to access this route, just simply tell Kel no and go back to bed, to which Sunny will wake up later that evening. Instead of going on a journey to face the truth and complete quests in Faraway, Sunny will just do his moving away chores. In fact, that's basically what Faraway becomes during this route. It becomes a chore simulator where Sunny just cleans up around the house. The third day he sweeps, the second day he cleans the dishes, and the last day he puts away and sorts old toys. I'll admit the first time I did this route, it was kind of odd for me just to have Sunny stay inside and do chores while listening to the house ambience. It was almost uneasy in a way, like I felt like something was off. Once you finish sweeping the house, Sunny passes out and he wakes up in the hallucination where we encountered something in the walls once again. Nothing really changes with any of the phobia encounters. The only thing that really changes in the first part of the route is how you encounter them, with something in the water being encountered by Sunny taking a bath and falling asleep in the tub, thus sending him underwater into that scene. Once out of that, our first changes of Faraway can be seen through the cutscene that plays when Sunny is falling asleep. This time, something can be seen looming over Sunny's dresser, something that wasn't present in the normal route. Our first changes in Headspace can be observed after we defeat Sweetheart and have to head down to the last resort, where instead of Marie greeting us this time, Kel greets us instead. The entire Marie segment from the normal route is just completely cut, with Omori swimming to the well that takes you down. Even once you meet Marie, she doesn't comment on Omori's emotion when meeting her again like she does in the Sunny route. Even past this point, most of the game's differences don't come until after we get to the second to last day, where the jump scare this time is where something comes out of the ground when you collect the keys, and even then, the next difference is going to be at the path to Basil's house, where this time when we pass the tulips, the stranger has nothing to say about Sunny, unlike what happens in the other route of the game. I do also want to bring up the difference I saw a first time I saw doing the Hikikomori route, and it was a specific jump scare that occurred to me where the stranger was outside of the room of Sunny's and was staring at the player. While making this video, I couldn't find any resources on this jump scare, but there's one video that I have of it, and it's this right here. On my second playthrough recording this video, I never got this jump scare, which I found very odd because I figured it was a route-specific jump scare. It's not tied to any WTF value, and apparently to trigger it, a couple Redditors discovered that you have to do a combination of opening the fridge, go back to Sunny's room, leave again, and once you go back, it should be there. Keep in mind, this jump scare is so incredibly rare that apparently no one had documented it until 5 months after the initial game's release, and this makes me wonder what other extremely obscure events Omori has, and if any of them have been documented or not. Perhaps one of these days in a playthrough, I might find, or another player might find, a very, very rare jump scare that's never been seen. I do also find it very odd that even in this different route, most of the differences observed are very, very subtle. Most of the major things that happen for 90% of this route are really nothing but slight visual changes or random sound effects that play during Sunny's house. I think that Omocat intentionally made the route like this way, almost kind of like how Toby Fox developed the Undertale Genocide route in a way that makes the player regret what they're doing. In my opinion, I think that Omocat wanted to intentionally try to bore the player out of the Hikikomori route, that being because it's the darker ending for Sunny. It's one of the endings you do not because it's easy to accidentally do on your first playthrough, but because the only people who would chase after this alternate reality where Sunny and his friends don't get a happy ending are the completionists. And I will admit, even as someone who likes to do all the routes in a game, seeing Sunny disappear from the menu after completing the good ending always kind of fucks with me, because everything was perfect in that timeline, as perfect as it could get for them. Since our first major plot changes don't happen until after Black Space, this time I decided to go through all the other Black Space rooms and talk about what they exactly mean and symbolize. There's a total of 18 rooms, but you can move on before exploring all of them. The room after the beach is the spider room, a room where we find Basil, but he begins to get eaten to death by spiders as he pleads for help from Omori, something that plays into his arachnophobia. This room is titled Safe Spot, and here we just see a barren landscape as we come into contact with the stranger once more. Next is the meat room, and it's one of the creepier rooms with Kel, Aubrey, and Hero's bodies just laying everywhere as blank-face NPC versions of them are scattered around the map. Not only that, but the background music is incredibly eerie too. Then there's one called Nighttime Treehouse, which sees Omori meeting Basil to go inside their old treehouse, to which the inside is incredibly distorted and interacting with any of the items just reads a blank title. Then going out, an elevator falls down and you can go inside to pick a location, and doing so will just take you back to the room in which Basil gets decapitated by the elevator. Then there's Fish Out of Water, which is just a blank room with multiple hanging bodies of Marie, the same ones we see coming out of the Lost Forest. Next room is one where Basil dies. This time we meet him coming out of a stump, and as he asks us a question on a raft, we enter a tunnel and then Basil gets decapitated once more. Two Side is a red room that features the background from Red Space and these red face creatures that just kind of float around. Then is a room called Time that features a bunch of clocks and beds. Then is Incubation, which shows Omori's friends in lifeless states with pools of blood and stuck into the walls. Then our last room, titled Friends Playground, shows a distorted version of Neighbor's room where Kel, Marie, and Hero beat Basil to death. Interacting with them has them say one of their quotes from Headspace with a distorted image of them. I find it interesting how most of the Black Space rooms, Basil endures some type of death. I think that it shows the lengths that Sunny is trying to go to get rid of his presence of Basil within the realm of Headspace, as even sending Basil to the realms of Black Space wasn't enough. Moving on to the Church of Something, this time Basil has been residing here, and instead of being in a loss of color like in the Sunny route, Basil seems to be completely fine here. Omori cuts Basil out of the entanglement, to which the stranger shows up and at this point has had it with Omori's shit. Quote, "Sunny, you've been running away from the truth for so long. How long will you keep running? I won't let this cycle repeat itself," as the stranger takes over the creature that haunts Basil and then consumes Omori, to which Sunny wakes up in his dreamlike state. And this time, instead of fighting something, Sunny is now fighting the stranger, the one voice from his head that tried to save him. Before they fight, the stranger says, "If you won't face the truth, then face me. Face the suffering you've caused for the people you love, the pain of knowing what you've lost, and the hatred of yourself for being too cowardly to change anything about it. Let those feelings devour you here until your insides rot." At this point, Sunny cannot run anymore. His only option is to fight, but it's pointless. The only thing Sunny can do is struggle to break free. He can only sit there and struggle while he's consumed by the symbol of his denial. The stranger nearly kills Sunny, to which the fight ends and Sunny is in red space now. As Sunny runs up the stairs, it gets harder and harder for him to walk. He collapses on the stairs shortly before reaching the throne of red hands, to which the camera then pans over to Omori, who steps down and meets Sunny, to which then Omori meets the stranger one last time. This time, though, the stranger is defeated, and before they part ways, the stranger says, "So you've chosen to live that way. I wonder, can you really call that living?" A red hand comes and takes Omori back to the church of something, and the red hands lead the way to the light outside, to which Basil and Omori climb it. It slowly takes them through the layers of headspace, from the church, through black space, through the deep well, and finally to a bedroom located in headspace called Neighbor's Room, where we see all of Omori's friends sleeping, and as Basil and Omori join them, the game begins for our last day in Faraway Town. Holy fucking shit. We gotta dissect what the hell just happened, because wow, is that a world of difference compared to the Sunny route where you just fight something and that's kinda it. With the stranger fight, I believe it symbolizes the idea that instead of learning to accept the truth, Sunny has had the cycle of hiding it over and over, and this time the stranger isn't having any of it. We can see this in the quote that he tells Sunny. Also, the quote before the start of the fight has got to be one of the toughest things said in any video game. Like, holy shit, my jaw was on the floor afterwards. But because the stranger is a manifestation of the desire to learn the truth, and because of Sunny's denial, Sunny becomes too overburdened and calls on Omori for help, to which the scene where Omori meets Sunny symbolizes the sense that at this point, Sunny really doesn't identify with himself anymore. Instead, he identifies with the Omori persona, and this can be proven by checking the mirror on One Day Left, and instead of Sunny staring back at you, it's Omori. Now, in terms of what's up with the bedroom, this room specifically has been foreshadowed all throughout the latter part of the game by the branch coral and the voice that speaks to us after Humphrey, that quote-unquote precious room, and the room the big yellow cat watches over. Now, why Basil gets added back to this room is left unanswered, but if you know anything about the game, I believe it's because after this point in the game, Basil has committed suicide in real life. In every other ending of Omori, it's presumed that Basil ends up committing suicide, and you can trigger this event directly if you do the Sunny route, and then when you're asked to save Basil, if you say no, you'll wake up in a couple of hours later to see Hiro, Kel, and Aubrey all with grimaced expressions, and looking into the door, you'll see that Basil has killed himself. The only route where this isn't presumed to happen is if you get the good ending after going to the hospital. But even there, you can get a bad ending. And we all know about.
Oh, Yasumi, close your eyes and you'll leave this dream. Oh, Yasumi,
I believe this happens to Basil on every route because he's been relentlessly bullied by Aubrey, his grandmother dying, and because of the truth that binds Sunny and Basil together. Remember that Basil was removed for being a loose end to the truth, someone who knew about it, someone who could not be controlled by Sunny's mind, unlike the other three friends that join us in Headspace. But now, since Basil has passed away, the only one who knows of the truth of Marie's death is Sunny himself, and with that power, he's able to completely rewrite how Basil acts within his mind, and is able to bring him back to the world Sunny uses to keep his mind at bay. On One Day Left, something can be seen stalking Sunny in every corner of his room, and like I said, if you check the mirror, it's Omori staring back at you, a symbol that Sunny no longer views himself as him, but rather the alter ego he created. You can end the route at this point forward to get one of the many quote-unquote knife endings in Omori. which though is being any ending where Sunny kills himself using the steak knife acquired. The last of his chores is to sort through his old childhood belongings, and if you pay attention to some of the names, you can see that many of the things in Headspace are related to things Sunny had as a child. The Captain Spaceboy figures, the Sprout Mole plushes, the Sweetheart doll, and the Hungry Humphrey book. It's all formed from stuff he witnessed as a kid. Once Sunny gets done with that, though, the eyes of something begin to surround him again, and the same music from Neighbor's Room will be playing once more. And if Sunny goes back to bed, a cutscene will play. Once Sunny gets back into Headspace, everything kind of plays out the same as it did at the start of the game, with a few subtle differences. And basically what has happened is that Headspace has taken on a sort of pseudo reset. Since Basil got added back into the world, Sunny resets the events of Headspace to make it to where all of the characters even forgot that Basil went missing. It's like it's just another day for them. This was probably to try and fix whatever was broken from before, and at this point there's a ton of new content that you can explore, and I'll be hitting on all of it before we go over the ending of the game. And by the way, if you plan on doing this route yourself, make sure that you have a separate save file, or that you don't save once Sunny wakes back up, because at any point now, if you wish to move on with the ending, just take Omori back to white space, stab, and Sunny will wake up to finish the game. Headspace takes on a very RPG-esque feeling from this point onward, and I honestly really enjoy the extra content you can unlock by doing this route. Firstly, you can get access to some really OP accessories for Omori and his friends at this point. The first of those being the hair clips you can get from Basil's house after going there. These clips give enormous stat boosts to each prospective character, and might be the last and only accessory you ever use for Omori's friends. Now, there's a bunch of new side quests you can do, and to 100% the game, you have to do the Hikikomori route, unfortunately. There isn't a specific set order that you have to approach these quests in, so I'm just going to go over the ones that I did in order. Once you get the hair clips, you're going to want to go to Deeper Well to get some sheet music scattered around. This will be important later, as it'll be used to access some bosses that give Omori some really powerful moves. Then you can head up to Otherworld to interact with Captain Spaceboy's father, who's looking for him. He gives you a set of batteries, and if you come down to the igloo and plug it into this fish, you get a really goddamn annoying song that I tried to skip as fast as I can. And oh, the door opens. Following the ladder down takes you to a room that transports you to a new location exclusive to the Hikikomori route called Snow Globe Mountain, a snowy landscape filled with ice chasms and snow angels, but is also the location where you can find your next boss fight, and this time it's against Space ex-husband. Yeah, his names get a little ridiculous. But because of him and Sweetheart's divorce, the captain has isolated himself to the top of the mountain so that he won't feel anything any longer, and to get him to move, you gotta beat some sense into him. He starts out unable to be damaged, but the only times you can land a hit is whenever you make him feel a certain emotion after a specific dialogue. And honestly, I think it's a really cool mechanic, and it's not one seen anywhere else in the game. In fact, it tripped me up the first time because it's been so long since I've done this route, and I actually died the first time trying to figure it out. Also, his new theme just goes fucking crazy. Just take a listen to it. Once defeated, he just drives away and you can see him again reconvening with his father, and then you can move on to whatever quest you want next, which on my agenda was getting all of the keys. See, there's a secret area you can access, once again exclusive only to the Hikikomori route, called the Abyss, but you can't really go into it until you have all of the keys. Now, depending on what order you found them, your order might be a lot different than mine. I had to run all the way back down to Deepwell in the last resort and go through one of these construction sites that can also take you back to Black Space. Even though Black Space has been sealed away, this proves to us that no matter how far down the rabbit hole of denial Sonny goes, his mind will always find a way to creep it back in. I also had to run into this Dino's Dig minigame over and over again, which if you plan to 100% the game, this is a great way to grind XP to get Omori and all of his friends to level 50. And you find some great healing items too. Once you get the final key, the Hangman menu will pop up and it will begin to draw a hangman. Now that all the keys have been completed, heading over to the Abyss will show it's been opened up where we can explore it. The Abyss starts out normal, but as you go deeper it slowly becomes more creepy until different formations of something are haunting the area. Keep pressing forward and you'll reach the deepest pit of the Abyss, a static black and white hellhole where the next boss resides. Walking forward will reveal a tentacle creature with its face stuck in the ground as it opens its eye and the fight begins. And this fight is against Abby, who, if you remember from the branch coral, was one of the 3 great creatures that Sonny had made in his mind, but was banished for her acknowledgement of the truth behind Marie's death. Abby's fight doesn't really have any background music, just ambience from Black Space. And ironically, Abby is actually really hard, because instead of fighting just one enemy, you have to fight 5 because each of her tentacles count as an enemy. And they each have their own attack, meaning you get hit 5 times total each turn. So bring your healing items and your area of effect attacks, I suppose. Once you get through the fight, though, Abby begs for mercy, and if you spare her, she'll offer you gifts that you can collect at each of the 8 tentacles scattered around the map that had their appearance since the start of the game. These tentacles give you what I like to call Omori and his friends the quote-unquote true items, those being the most powerful items for them that resemble their real-life personalities. Omori gets the red knife, Aubrey gets a baseball bat, Kel gets a basketball, and Hiro gets a spatula. Next stop is going to be the Lost Library, and this is where the music sheets are going to come in handy, as now you can get some pretty awesome attacks for Omori. Once you enter, we see the area also has been overrun by different figures of something. If you head to the left, you can walk behind the bookshelves, and interacting with the piano will allow you to place your sheet music, opening up 3 doors. Going inside of the first one will take you to a hallway filled with candles, and at the end of the door and interacting with it, we'll start a fight with something in the dark. Yes, that's right, these next 3 boss fights Omori will literally be killing the phobias. These fights are also really tricky too, as some of them deal extra damage with area of effect attacks, or if you have a certain amount of turns to complete the fight. But once you beat something in the dark, you unlock the Vertigo attack, which does damage to all enemies and reduces their attack. The next one is you fighting something in the walls, and after beating that one, you get Cripple, which does damage to all enemies and reduce their speed. And in the last fight against something in the water, and completing it will give you the Suffocate ability, which does a flat 400 damage to all enemies but lowers their defense. Now that that is over, it's time to explore probably one of the strangest parts of the Hikikomori route, that being Black Space 2. To access this, you just have to go back to white space and interact with the laptop, allowing Omori to go back into black space. This time, though, all of the rooms are different, and the game takes on an entire Yumi Nikki feel. You can explore this realm for hours and still find new things, and there are some rooms you can't even access unless you do what's called a hybrid Hikikomori route, which is where you talk to Kel on the 3rd day but don't answer the door for the 2nd day. There's hundreds of different rooms to find too, and I'm willing to bet there might even be some that no one has discovered yet. Black Space 2, while containing a lot of weird and creepy things, it also contains some things that are just really odd and silly at times. One room I found involved a bunch of clones of Aubrey fighting over Sunny's love, and then Omori just wakes up at a desk like it was a dream. This place is where the wildest of thoughts end up, and not just the anxiety-filled ones, but anything can end up here, in what is essentially a land dump for Sunny's long-forgotten thoughts, ideas, fears, and memories. Black Space 2, in my opinion, is deeper than Black Space in terms of where it resides within Sunny's mind, as right now Headspace acts as the highest surface level. Then you have White Space that acts like a border between the Dark World and Headspace itself. Then below White Space is Black Space, then Red Space, then Black Space 2. I say that Black Space 2 is lower than Red Space because whenever we see Omori and Basil leave the Church of Something, they walk up the stairs and they're just leaving rooms that were present in Black Space and not Black Space 2. I do like that this is something that we can go back to. I believe it reinforces the idea that since Headspace reset, Omori kind of is like a god in the sense that he can travel anywhere throughout Sunny's mind, since at this point, Sunny is no longer himself. Black Space 2 opens up a whole new can of worms for lore regarding Sunny's past, and I'm really happy that this is something that got left in. If you want to exit Black Space 2, you just have to stab and then interact with the laptop again, and you can leave. The last thing I want to go over with the extra content is being able to revisit Humphrey. Once after you complete some quests, you can go back and feed Humphrey to unlock him again. This will unlock some new quests with the Slime Girls and some extra content, the first of which being the new Boss Rush, run by none other than Boss himself, who seems to have turned his violent ways around and made a simulation of all the bosses you've encountered so far. There's really nothing special here, you just run through every boss you've done, and if you own the console version of Omori, you can do the entire boss rush with Basil instead of Omori's friends, and fight Omori's friends as a boss too. This is also the location of Omori's most powerful boss, known as Perfect Heart, who can be seen watching over Sweetheart as she sweeps the ground. Once you prompt her, she'll ask you a bunch of times if you're actually ready to fight her, and once you begin, I hope you're ready because holy shit, she is hard. I'm talking like you are going to suffer if you half-ass it. She hits like a truck, she'll fuck with your emotions all the time, and you can't exploit her. If you go into this fight without some sort of plan, you are setting yourself up for failure. Though she does have a banging theme. Just take a listen. This was also the prime time to try the fabled Kel nuke, a strategy where you use run and gun, a move based on Kel's speed, and flex, which increases the hit rate and damage of the next attacking move. Using food items like the snow cone and coffee also increases his speed, and you can do some ludicrous damage with it. Since I'm finished here in Headspace, to wake up, just go back into Whitespace and stab, and Sunny will awake back up. Things inside of Sunny's house get really weird on the last night, with Helmarie showing up at the bottom of the stairs, then the piano room not having a piano in it, and then Sunny's monster version slowly walking back to his room, along with other various visual and auditory hallucinations. The last night in Faraway Town invokes a feeling of uneasiness, one where the head of all of Sunny's trauma has come to and is now expressing itself with full force, as he knows that no one from his previous friend group will know the truth of Marie's death. And to be honest, I was kind of spooked myself. I skip ahead and just sleep in Sunny's bed, as choosing to go back to Whitespace will just lead to one of the knife endings and forward to the next day, to which Sunny will take a prolonged time falling asleep, and you'll see many renditions of Helmarie. Upon waking up, going into various rooms, we can see that movers have already come for their stuff, and the only thing left to do is to go outside and go out to Sunny's mom's car, to which something will be following Sunny all the way there. Sunny gets in the car, and they drive away, never looking back, with Hero, Kel, Aubrey, and Basil never getting the closure they deserve. As the credits roll, police sirens can be heard, and what can only be assumed that Basil's body was discovered, and then the game just ends. After my first playthrough of this route, I was somewhat left with a feeling of guilt. Instead of the happy fulfillment I got when completing the Sunny route, instead I just felt kind of empty. Yeah, I completed the game, but I had just rewritten history to make sure that Sunny would never confront his trauma. I believe it's interesting to see the take that Omocat had on this alternative route, as it shows what happens when something is kept away for too long. Remember in my first video when I said that bottling emotions only leads to harm? This is exactly what I meant. Sunny becomes so deep in his denial that he's basically on the brink of suicide and completely loses who he actually is. And this is only the best possible ending for the Hikikomori route, as like I said, if you choose to go back to Whitespace on the night before moving, upon waking up again, Sunny will have stabbed himself, leading to his death and possibly one of the darkest endings in the whole game. This route doesn't tug at your heart or doesn't open your eyes. Instead, I believe that you weren't even supposed to play Omori like this. Once you complete the Sunny route, you get a main menu screen of Sunny, but after completing the Hikikomori route, you don't get any of that. You don't get a reward for having Sunny do this. It's why I believe that Omocat made this route as boring as possible at the start, to keep you from doing it. It's why I believe it holds as much impact as Undertale's genocide route, if not more, because it still holds the same weight of you don't get anything out of doing this. Sure, you might get a couple of achievements, but was it really worth it? Still though, I believe Omori as a game needs something like this, something that shows an alternate version, as without it, the main ending wouldn't hold as much weight as it does, I feel like. What's the point in feeling good about Sunny confronting the truth if you never had a choice in the first place, and it's always destined to happen? Now, in regards if this ending is canon or not, it most likely isn't. When it comes to games with multiple endings, you kind of have to pick and choose what is and what isn't canon. But also with the Omori manga coming out, that being it based on the Sunny route, we can safely assume that Omocat intends for the Sunny route to be the true canon route of the game. But at the same time, the manga technically isn't canon, and maybe down the line there might be a Hikikomori rendition of it. Even if it's shorter, I still believe that the story presented here is well written, as the main story pairs so nicely with it. When you go into the Hikikomori route, unless you're really unlucky and a poor decision maker your first time, you already have background knowledge about the main events. You're going to be hardwired to look for differences in the gameplay pattern, and when you see those differences, like Kel greeting you instead of Marie, they hit a lot more because you understand the full contextual weight of them. Overall, I still really enjoyed this route, and it further cements how I feel about this game's world building, story, and the choice on how you want to confront your problems. As in, will you go and face them, or hide away forever? Now, as for what I'll be doing in the future, this isn't the end of coverage for Omori, and I still have other games that I'd love to talk about. But as with Omori, I could still go in depth with many other things, such as the music, individual characters, so much more. I know that this video has taken a really long time for me to make, and I missed my original deadline by about a couple months. And that's probably something I'll talk about with my second channel, since that seems to be a repeating hobby, and I think I kind of know why. But still, I'm happy I could get this out for you guys eventually. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as my previous Omori video, and if you haven't seen it, then go watch it. And with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.